Hello, welcome everyone. This is Edy from IndieFlow, and I'm super excited and grateful that you all are here on this Tuesday to talk about getting it together and organizing the artist brain. That's right. We know we need it. I'm an artist too. A lot of you all may know that already, and organization is definitely something I struggle with. But we have a fantastic person to help us, our very own head of artist relations, Laura Catana. Let me get her up to the stage. And in the meantime, drop in the chat where you're tuning in from. What's up, Joe Billy? Oh, Michael. Hey, long time no see. Good to have you here. All right, give me a minute. Let me get Laura up on the stage. Haley is tuning in from South Florida. Nate, what's up, Nate? I know Nate's in Detroit. Kenny is tuning in from Connecticut.
Hi, everybody.
Anik and Bruce in Alabama. What's up, Bruce?
I love the shout out. I love the shout out game in the beginning.
Okay, I cannot hear you, Laura.
No?
Let me.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
I can't. I see you turned your mic on and off.
You can hear me. Interesting. Everybody can hear me. Edy can.
Are you going to? Okay, Andrew says he can hear her. Okay, everyone else can hear you, but not me. That is so strange. Oh my. Oh, thanks, Kenny. Okay, so you guys can hear me and you can hear Laura, but Laura and I can, you and Laura can hear me, but why can't I? Okay, give me a second. It might be my sound. So let me just try something.
Well, thank God the technical difficulties aren't on my end. Can you hear me now?
No, I hear you now. It was my speaker. So I hear you now. We're good to go.
Awesome.
Yay. So let's see who else is here. We've got Kenny, Bodacious Thing. I don't know who that is, but I love that name. Tavon in Florida. Gabe, what's up, Gabe? Oh, and if you're an artist and you are challenged by organization, drop an emoji in the chat. I'm just gonna. I am IndieFlow right now, so I can definitely drop an emoji.
Boom! Emoji
in there. Yeah, right. It should be everyone. Ooh, here's a good one.
Been working on that. Great. Well, hopefully we got some helpful tips here for you guys.
Yes.
This is how you know that I'm not an artist, because my brain I realize works a little differently. So hopefully.
Laura loves organization, y'all. She has taught me a lot about organization since I started working at IndieFlow.
I've never met somebody who likes to-do lists as much as I do.
Well, awesome. Well, let's get started and get into it. You know, Laura, I'd love for you. I know most people probably know you as the head of artist relations, but tell me a little bit more about who you are and why you do love organizing, kind of like how you came to be this way.
Well, that's a really okay. The reason I came to be this way is because of 7th grade social studies.
What?
Some people perform really well under pressure. I do not. I crumble into a million pieces. I start crying. That's what happens to me under pressure. So my organizational skills that I've learned is strictly to keep me away from turning into a crying mess like I would turn into in 7th grade social studies when I just didn't leave myself enough time to write my paper.
Got it. Okay.
That's where that comes from. And then also, I'm somebody, I don't have a great memory. So it's all about knowing what your faults are and then finding some tools to help you perform a little better. So yeah, I have a terrible memory. If it's not on a list, if it's not on my calendar, it's probably not going to happen.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense. Anyone else terrible under pressure? Or do you thrive under pressure? Just drop that in the chat. I'm really curious to know where people stand on that. I'm someone who actually kind of thrives under pressure. I'm like last minute, it gives me anxiety, but then I'm like, oh, I can get it done. And yeah.
By the way, so I've worked with a couple of artists who also thrive under pressure. And if that is you, great, know that. Then your superpower is deadlines. You thrive under pressure, then give yourself deadlines. You've got to get this done by tomorrow. There you go.
I love that. I love that. If you thrive under pressure, give yourself deadlines. Haley said, I used to think I thrived under it, but I realized it was just wanting to get rid of the anxious feeling. ALC, Andrew Lindsay, he says, I thrive under pressure. Under pressure. Michael thrives under pressure. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, so, you know, I'm like a newbie when it comes to organization. And sometimes it feels overwhelming. So I think first I'd love to talk about like, how do we shift our mindsets so that we feel capable of being more organized?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay. Is that for me?
That is for you, but I will throw a tidbit in there because one of the practices I use are affirmations. I know this is not necessarily writing something down, but you know, I do help people with mindset shifts, and definitely affirmations and finding that confidence, reminding yourself of why you want to do this.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think, well, first of all, also this, get ready, everybody. This session is going to be half therapy, half like tools and tips. So affirmations are super important, and also affirmations from like self-affirmations, but also, you know, keep that buddy around, whether it's your partner or your sibling or your best friend, but that person, and you guys were talking about this in office hours the other day, but that person that's gonna, you know, when you think you're falling apart and you're like, oh, I can't do this, that cheerleader that's gonna just be there by your side and be like, oh, yes, you can. I believe in you. I know you can. Don't overlook that. That is so important. So important. Emotional support is very, very, very important.
Agree.
And I'm not saying surround yourself with yes people, because that's not the same thing. But okay, but a more technical tip on that bit. I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed when you're playing the role that you guys are all playing, which is, you know, basically 15 different ones.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I think what can be, what you know, you get overwhelmed and you're like, I have so much to do. If you start practice taking a huge picture and break it down into manageable chunks, little by little. Seems obvious, maybe, but cool. I'm just reading Gabe's re-answer. Yeah, you need the brutally honest person and then the cheerleader. Maybe they can be both. Maybe it can be this person.
Yeah. I love you said there, breaking, you know, I think as artists, we are often thinking big picture. And sometimes, breaking things down into smaller chunks. I love that. I think we'll come back to that.
Yeah, we'll go deep.
Yeah. Okay, so what about let's talk a little bit about expectations too, and how to, you know, when it comes to releasing music, or, you know, getting organized, how do we set our expectations so that they're realistic?
Realistic expectations.
How do we set realistic expectations?
Well, here's something I say often. I used to say this about the food in Cuba when I lived there, is if you lower your expectations, you might be pleasantly surprised.
Ooh.
Which I say a little tongue in cheek, but okay. So expectations, Edy, look, I talk to artists often. that, somebody who's put out 3 singles on Spotify has, 15 monthly listeners, and I ask them, what's the goal for this release? And their response is, I want to get 1 million streams. Could it happen? It could happen. Is it likely to happen? Not. Yeah, you guys laugh. I hear that often. So managing expectations, but like realistic expectations, and even not even like, maybe even back up a second from expectations, but having just goals, having clear goals is super, super important. Yeah, setting small goals for things that you can achieve, like goals, meaning like things that you can check off a checklist, like, or a to-do, right? So let's give an example. What's some stuff? Who's working on what? I'm helping a friend who's working on a release, right? And they were putting together a marketing plan. So I'm like, okay, what's the plan for this? What's the goal for this release, right? Yeah. And he had a really beautiful, great, simple goal. The goal is, I want to do another show in front of, like, a ticketed show in front of a crowd in Miami, where he's based. I'm like, okay, that could happen. That could happen. But
because it's specific too.
Yeah, it's specific, and it's also something that you can take actionable steps towards. Okay, so your goal is to book a show. What does that mean? Okay, you gotta, well, do we want to break down what that process is? Am I rambling? Keep me in line, Edy.
No, you're good. I love what you're saying here. It's like, we're talking about expectations. So first thing is set a goal, and then start to, I think you're coming back to that theme of like, break it down into manageable chunks of how to get to that goal. And when it comes to realistic expectations, like knowing that you're not going to go from 15 monthly listeners to 1 million streams in one single, just like maybe if you've never done a show before, or you've only done a few shows, setting yourself up to open for Leon Bridges is not the most realistic goal, but it doesn't mean you can't book a show.
Right.
So it sounds like what you're also pointing to is having some objectivity in your music and in your career.
And also, yeah, absolutely. And this reminds me of something actually that Anik said to me the other day, or wrote up in a document he was working on, is, also having some like self-awareness and being clear on like, what are you bringing to the table here? Like, okay, I want to book a show, right? Well, if I don't have any fans in the city that I'm trying to book a show in, not to say that I can't book a show, but the process to get there is going to be a little bit different, right? But really being clear on like, what am I bringing to the table? Why, if I want to book a show, why would somebody want to book me? And it's not just because, oh, I'm awesome and I think I'm awesome. What do I have to, it's I think all a little bit about like, what value are you bringing to the table? What value can you leverage, right? So maybe, well, I don't know. Do you want to also maybe, I was thinking, does anybody in here want to share some goals, and we can kind of maybe use one as an example of like action steps to get there?
If you've got some goals in mind for yourself, go ahead and drop them in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking.
It could be goals for your next release. It could be goals for maybe something you want to do over the summer. Goals. Let's finish up this EP and release it finally. Okay. I love what you guys are saying. Engaged, loyal listeners. All right, Kenny, that's a good one. That's a little more in depth. Let's start with Mike's. Finish this EP and release it already. Can we do this? You down with this, Edy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right, so finish this EP and release it finally. So Mike, get out a piece of paper. We're going to make a to-do list. I think, got it. Okay, good. So first of all, what is the end goal? Okay, you want to have an EP and release it. So EPing, well, I want my next release. Okay, you guys got a whole lot of good ones. But
I know there's some good ones in here. Yeah.
Let's start with
We're gonna start with Michael's, I think.
With Michael's. Okay.
Yeah, we all release music, so, and I think this, could be applicable to a lot of people here.
Okay. So, Mike, you said you thrive under pressure, right? So we're gonna do deadlines after deadlines after deadlines. So first, how many tracks do you have on this EP? How many are you missing? Okay, so here's what you're gonna do, and this is, you have 5 tracks. Okay, there's gonna be 5 tracks. Great.
I love this.
Missing 1. Excellent. Okay, so Gabe, I see that question, but we're gonna come back.
We're gonna get to questions, but
And actually, maybe also people, if you don't want your questions to get lost, put it in the ask a question place.
Yes.
If you see that,
yeah,
because we can review those at the end. Okay, so EP needs to be finished. So this all maybe sounds basic. So forgive me if this sounds too simple, but first your to-do list of, okay, you need to finish 1 more track. Okay, so here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna literally put on paper what is every detail that's missing there. So that 1 song, okay, have you recorded the vocals yet? Put that as a line item and write this in, actually what you should do is you should open up a project and lay out your step-by-step, okay? So maybe you need to keep recording different vocals. Maybe you need to like walk through the different like recording processes. Okay, let's say the track is all recorded. What's next? You're going to send it to mix and master. Every single step along the way, you're going to write it out and you're going to give it a due date. Okay, and then as those due dates.
Yeah, we're loving this. Bring it.
like, tell me, because this whole, I feel like this is really basic, but is this helpful for you guys? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So the thing, look, Mike, what's cool about this is as you lay out this process, like per song, then guess what? Especially if you do it in IndieFlow and you make a project, and every time you've got another song, you already have your checklist. All you need to do is kind of go through it. Because here's the thing, it is bananas to think that every little step along the way, you're going to just remember. You're not. And even if you are a superhero and you can, the goal here is to grow, right? So if you just have everything in your head and you're like, oh, well, I know what my process is. Well, maybe one day you're going to hire an assistant, or maybe one day you're going to have a social media manager or a manager. How are they going to know what your process is? Right? Okay, make a template. Yes, Brian, make a template. Everybody open up their IndieFlow right now. But exactly that. Yes, make a template. Okay, so let's say,
side note, I just want to plug in here. If you're not an IndieFlow member, IndieFlow does have amazing project management tools, including a release template that we've already created for you. Now, and just like Laura's saying, the idea is that you customize it and create your own process. But we have great tools to get you started.
Thank you, Edy. So maybe also let me back up a bit. And sorry, Edy, I think maybe I'm jumping around a little bit, but you reel me in. Here's what makes project management really useful, and it makes it really a tool for you guys. Okay, is look, Mike. You said, okay, I got to finish my EP. There's like 10 different parts of that process of, you've got your recording and engineering, right? Then you've got maybe your content creation. Are there going to be any visuals? Then you've got your marketing. The biggest tip, the thing about project management is what you want to do is take what seems like a really big picture and you start breaking it down into chunks. And then you take each chunk and you get really even more micro and you break down every step. Okay, so like for the EP, we started, let's say, with recording, right? I think, yeah, that would be your first step, right? So what are, in addition to laying down your different tracks, then you got to get it mixed and mastered. Then maybe I would kind of put, that's maybe you want to get also your instrumental mastered. Maybe you want to get different versions. You want to have, whatever you need. Right? What all those deliverables are, and then due dates. Okay. because you can't really move forwards with your release if you don't have the music done. So that's all very important. Maybe your next chunk in terms of releasing an EP is now you got to get your artwork done and some visuals, right? So maybe you're going to do the artwork. Maybe as you're doing the artwork, you'll also have, a little, maybe your banners that you're going to put on your YouTube page and your Facebook page. Maybe like all the different iterations of the kind of artwork that you're going to have, lay it all out there. Helpful?
This is very helpful.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, Laura, because I love what you're saying here. Like, okay, we're gonna map our project out.
Yeah.
If you have IndieFlow, you have a tool to actually put those tasks in, put those due dates in, as well as even store the content that you're creating around it.
Yes.
Let's get back to due dates. I know you're big into using scheduling tools. Let's talk a little more about that and how to, like, once you put those due dates in, how to then like get to those due dates and complete those tasks. What are some scheduling best practices?
Scheduling best practices. Okay. Let me actually also to what you were saying. Oh, yay, Kenny. I'm happy to hear that. I wasn't just to the point earlier of like, how did I learn how to do this? I also took a class in high school. There was a mandatory class in my high school that was all about project management, organization. And I think back on that all frequently of how helpful that was.
Wow.
Yeah. So what up, New York City Public School?
Okay.
Okay, so you're horrible with dates. Your ADHD kicks in. Okay, great. We got solutions. So here's what you guys are going to do. Okay. First of all, when you have due dates. Okay. So let's say you're setting yourself the due date that your track needs to be, all the different tracks need to be completed to submit for mastering by Friday, let's say. Okay. So here's how I do it. I also totally, I get easily distracted. Sitting down and focusing can be really hard for me. So again, tips and tricks. Okay. So let me see if I can should I pull up my schedule?
Yeah.
It looks kind of scary.
I bet.
Let me see what my personal one looks like. Okay, well, what you want to do is this. So you're right. Setting a due date, if you don't actually stick to it, means nothing, right? So what I do every day, I actually do it at night before I go to bed. Okay, so at night before I go to bed at some point, or do it in the morning, whatever works for you. But what I do is I look at my calendar and I say, okay, what do I have coming up tomorrow? Do I have anything due tomorrow? Do I have anything due this week? Okay, so let's say in the event that we've got this deadline on Friday, what I do to make sure that I actually get it done is I go in, I use Google Calendar, use whatever calendar works for you, just use a calendar. If it's a pen and paper calendar, cool. If it's whatever. I go and I literally block out chunks of time. So like, for example, so let's say this deadline on Friday. Maybe what I would do is I would say, okay, tomorrow, I know that to finish that, I'm not done. I need about like 3 or 4 hours of work in the studio. Okay. So stay up 2 straight days to finish. No, Brian, that is not the way. I mean, unless that works for you, in which case, if it works, do it. Okay. But I would go into my calendar and I would literally say, okay, tomorrow I have 2 hours that I can spend on this. And I'm going to block it out. I'm going to say tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. Nobody can hold the gun to you to make you actually do it, right? That is still on you. But
that's where that mindset comes in, y'all. That's where that mindset comes in. So when you're doing your affirmations and you're believing in yourself, you're more likely to hold yourself accountable. Just putting my 2 cents in.
Yes, but you're 100% right. Here, look, actually, can I pull up I can share my screen here, right?
Yes. You should be able to.
Okay, I'm showing you guys my calendar from from pre-IndieFlow, but just to give you a gist of what things look like. Can everybody see you guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this was at a point in time where I was freelancing. I had lots of different like moving projects going on. So this is how I do it. I'm a dork. I really like color coding. So like they're colors mean different things. You don't have to do that. But look,
I think that's a great strategy, actually, because a lot of artists are very visual when it comes to learning and interpreting things.
So look, in this case, like Blue, I guess this was a doctor's appointment, but look, here's a freelance project. Okay. So this Freeport, I had to finish a palm card. So I blocked it out 8 to 9. That's what I have to do that. Then I have more work to do on the Freeport project, 9 to 10. I literally block everything out. The red are my to-do, my reminders. Okay. So you can set like tasks, you know how you can set a task or a reminder. Those are the little things I need to make sure I remember. But literally, I mean, I don't know, could you guys see yourself utilizing something like this? Would that be helpful? Could you see that being helpful?
Yes.
Okay. So when you've got that deadline, just putting it down that it's due on Friday is not good if you don't set aside the time. Okay. So color coding, blocking out your calendar like this really helps. Another thing that really helps me, and whoever said to Gabe, I think it was you that had the ADHD. Have you guys ever heard of what the Pomodoro technique is? Pomodoro?
No, please share.
Okay. So you can just go, let me open it up on YouTube. This works wonders for me because, like I said, it's hard for me to just sit and focus and get things done. I'm the type of person, I have 500 tabs open on my computer. I start doing one thing here for 5 minutes, then I move somewhere else for 5 minutes. Okay. So the Pomodoro technique is really simple. All it is, and you can I'll show you my screen. You can get a video on YouTube and just to kind of guide you through it. But the principle is that your brain can't handle just sitting and working infinitely. Okay. So what it does is you work for 25 minutes and you pause for 5 minutes. And you work for 25 minutes and you pause for 5 minutes. So you can set a timer. So what I do, the 25 minutes I will say, okay, for the next 25 minutes, all I'm working on is this one task, is this Freeport project palm card. If I open up an email to do something else, no, for 25 minutes, I'm just doing this. Okay.
Yeah.
Set the timer. When it rings, you have 5 minutes. Take those 5 minutes then to do whatever you want. Get up, walk around, check your phone. But for those 25 minutes, you are just focused. You tune everything out, put your phone away, close the other tabs. Really, really works for me. Okay.
I've heard of this. I like this.
I recommend you all try it.
Yeah. So Laura, one thing I'm identifying as a first step for a lot of artists, myself included, is to block out that time that you're going to check your schedule every day.
Okay.
So, let's start there with committing to spending, 20 minutes a day on looking at your schedule for the next day and getting into that habit first as a way to start just using your scheduling tool. So whether that's you're in your Google Calendar or maybe you're using a planner of some sort, but making sure you make that time every day to look at your schedule and start to utilize a schedule.
Yes. If you don't have the need for a schedule,
who doesn't have the need for a schedule?
What are you doing?
You're an artist. You have a lot going on. So
you have a lot going on, and please fight that stereotype. Don't be that disorganized artist who's like, oh, I forgot. Don't do that. You guys are business people. You're entrepreneurs. You got to have your shit together. Okay.
The affirmation.
Yes. I like to check my schedule at night before I go to bed because I am an anxious person and I want to make sure that okay, I know what I need to do tomorrow. But maybe that's over your morning coffee type thing. Literally whatever works for you, just find a routine that you can stick to. Okay. The next thing also I would say beyond that of okay, find the time to then look at your calendar. calendar is one thing. Then the next thing is prioritizing with like a to-do list. So like every evening or every night, I will literally write out, okay, the things I need to get done tomorrow. Okay. It's very easy to jump and be like, oh, I want to do all the million little things that are like really unimportant, but those are the fun things. Resist that urge. Start with the most painful, the most significant, but the most important, and identify that. Like prioritize on your to-do list. Like this is number one. Okay. I get great satisfaction by crossing things off my to-do list. So honestly, what I do, even if I am writing my to-do list and there's something that I just finished 5 minutes before writing my to-do list, I will still add it to my to-do list just so I can cross it out. There's something very satisfying.
There is something very satisfying. And, I've also heard about making sure you acknowledge your successes. So whether that's, gold star next to your accomplished task, or getting up after your accomplished task and giving yourself some pump me up, energy in front of the mirror, setting a goal and a reward at the end of it, whether that's having a beautiful cup of tea or buying yourself something cool because you accomplished something. I definitely think that rewards can be a motivating factor in how you get things done.
That's literally how you train a dog.
I have a puppy in my room right now.
Oh yeah. There's a reason that works.
Yeah. How you train kids too. And really, we're all big kids out here, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I think look, like we're saying, for project management, obviously we use IndieFlow. For a calendar, I use Google Calendar. Just find what works for you. And also it's very like, maybe you try one thing and you're like, damn, I can't stick to this. Okay, maybe that particular calendar feature wasn't for you. Try something else. Some people use Outlook, some people use iCal. Like I said, I'm Google because it syncs everywhere and I can have access to it everywhere, which is important to me.
Yeah. And just FYI, y'all, if you're IndieFlow member or not, IndieFlow also has a calendar tool that can sync to your Google Calendar. So as you're putting those to-dos in your IndieFlow project and your deadlines, they're coming through to your calendar. Mm-hmm. You can block out the time there, or you can use your Google Calendar, but you can totally sync it through to your Google Calendar. I think, yeah.
Once I get this done, I can get that cookie. Exactly, Joe Billy. Exactly. Another thing also that I find myself doing that I have to like really consciously pull back on. I have the tendency to put like 20 things on my to-do list. Things that like I'm clearly there are not enough hours in the day to get done, right? So it's cool if you just have them there and like, okay, so actually my to-do list has 2 lists in it. There's my to-do list and then there's my to-do today. From that master to-do list, I'll just pull out, okay, these are the priorities for today, and this is realistically all I have time to do today.
Yeah. I think that also goes back to setting those realistic expectations. You don't want to set yourself up thinking you're going to get like 15 tasks done today, when realistically getting 3 to 4 done is probably going to be more realistic for what you're up to. And it might take also some time as you start this to figure out how much time you actually have and how much time things actually take to get done.
Yeah. Daryl, I'm just sending your note about the calendar starting on Monday to our tech team, because you're not the first person that said that to me.
Okay. Yeah. So Kevin says, how do you decide when one of the steps within your project is actually a project in itself? Mm-hmm. For instance, if finish an album is your overall project and within that project's list is a crowdfunding campaign, I get hung up on that a lot. I casually throw something into a list that's actually a big deal.
Yeah, that's, well, first of all, great that you recognize that. And that's why, I mean, like project management, it's to-dos within to-dos within to-dos. So yeah, I mean, well, how would you, let's see, what's the approach? How do you handle that?
I would, start a new project like based on when you identify that, like crowdfunding campaign. That is a big deal. Start a crowdfunding campaign is not one task on a checklist. So I think it goes back to what Laura said earlier about taking those big picture ideas and then breaking them down into manageable chunks. So crowdfunding campaign, the first step might be researching how to do a crowdfunding campaign and what could make it successful. So crowdfunding best practices. Step 2, pick a platform that you're going to use for your crowdfunding campaign. Create the marketing materials for your crowdfunding campaign. Define your goals and objectives. So, breaking those big things down. And then I feel like we really set this conversation up because I keep going back to then also like setting those realistic expectations for whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a crowdfunding campaign or releasing a project, clearly identifying what your goals are and having that objective view of like, is this realistic for me?
I think also like going through, so like using this example of crowdfunding, I think also it takes a little more time, let's say, to really map out the process before you begin, but it's important because it's ultimately going to help you be more efficient, because there's also sometimes you got to do things in a certain order, like even before you make any marketing materials in the example, I know this is just an example of a crowdfunding campaign. First, what you're going to need to do is like, what's the goal of this crowdfunding campaign? What's our story? What's the pitch? What are our offerings? Like there's lots of details you're going to need to hammer out first. And yeah, I'm just really, really, really of the opinion, like step by step, so you can check it off. Even if it feels obvious, it keeps you focused. And it also is helpful to have kind of like a bird's eye view of like, where am I at in this process? Like how much more, how much have I chipped away at this task? How much do I have to keep going?
So I have a question that goes back to kind of like Michael's example of planning a release. How far out
yes,
do you think an artist should start planning a release?
Great question. I think it really depends on your resources, and it depends on where you're at in your career. And then I think also what the goal is. So look, I would say at the very least, at like a bare minimum, and I don't mean to say it like, oh, at the very least, but like as a real solid starting place, I would say. I like to think of at least like the marketing. Well, how far would you plan out a release? Again, I am somebody, I don't work well under pressure. So I like to have things done ahead of time. Okay. Somebody gave me some really great advice once that sounded crazy to me at the time, but it is just so right. You really need to have all of the different moving pieces of the release prepared before you start rolling anything out. So, the question is, how long should you take to prepare? It depends how quickly can you make content. So let's say, for example, I've got, it's May 24th. Okay. So what I would do is I would say, okay, before I'm even setting a release date for my album, or maybe I have a tentative one. Let's say I want to, I'm planning to release a song July 1st. Okay. I would first say, okay, all of the content, all of the posts I'm going to make on Instagram, all of the, the cover art, maybe my plan of like the types of little videos I'm going to make to promote it. All of that, if it's not totally finished, it is like 90% mapped out. I know what all the pieces are. I know exactly what the script is going to be, as finished as possible. So usually that's like at least, I mean, a month and a half, 2 months out, a month out.
Yeah.
Maybe a month out. And then, question? No,
well,
sorry.
No, it's okay. What I'm hearing is like almost like before you set that end deadline, figure out the project plan. So whether you're creating 9 pieces of content for your Instagram, or maybe you're like, no, I'm going to create 3 pieces of content, kind of like being clear on how much you're going to market it before you set that release date. So how much content you want to create, and then set the release date around that, which I think makes a lot more sense. I think a lot of artists are just like, we have these arbitrary deadlines in our mind. I mean, we're just like, I need to release it on this date because this date is meaningful, or
and sometimes the date is meaningful. Sometimes it is.
Exactly. But, kind of like putting the plan together first of like, what's my goal? What do I need to create to meet that goal? And then picking a date based on how much time it's going to take me to put that plan together and put those pieces together.
Right. And maybe you set yourself on your to-do list. Maybe every day you create one of those pieces of content. Maybe you can make more. Maybe every day you can commit to making 2-3 pieces of content. But you're ultimately, you have to be realistic. Like maybe you're not a fast worker and it's going to take you a long time, or maybe the next couple of weeks, you got a lot of family stuff going on and you're just not going to have the time.
Yeah.
But I generally also, like, I would say to think of the marketing cycle of a song, of a release, as a month, at like kind of as a starting point. So like you're going to hype it 2 weeks before release. Then you've got release day. Then you've got 2 weeks after release. So there's your 1 month cycle. Okay. How long does it take you to create the content for that 1 month long cycle? Depends how many pieces of content are you going to be releasing, which again, you plan it out, lay it out, sketch out all the steps, and then you're like, okay, how much time is this going to take me? Block out every morning. I'm going to spend an hour creating content for, this upcoming release, or I'm going to spend, 2 hours filming 3 pieces of content, whatever.
Amazing. So I also want to touch on, because we're talking about content relating to a release. And I've been thinking about my next musical release. Other than content, how else can an artist market a musical release? And I actually I'll share how I've been thinking about my next release in this question, because I've had a few sync placements with some of my music. And I've been thinking about marketing for my next release as maybe the goal isn't like, oh, I want to like gain more followers. I want to get another sync placement because that equals real money in my real bank account. So maybe, just I want you all to start thinking about, it's not just, oh, I'm going to market online and it's all about streams or followers. Like, what are some other avenues that you could market your release? So for example, if you want to get sync license placements, maybe part of your marketing is I am researching all the sync licensing companies and submitting my music to them. I'm building relationships with those people. I'm sending, 10 emails a week to contacts to pitch my music. And that might actually get you further than, 10 pieces of content on Instagram. Again, it's all about defining those goals. But Laura, I'm curious, any other ideas you have about marketing a musical release other than content?
I mean, no, that's a great idea. I mean, I would give a similar example also, like, okay, what is your goal to get to book more shows? Then you should be marketing to booking agents, so talent buyers, and that actually honestly is a little bit easier. And I think same with you for sync licensing. You don't have to get too caught up in, oh shit, what am I
going to post?
Right. If your goal is gigs, start making a list of what are all the local venues that are appropriate for you. Go look at artists who are similar to you. Where have they been playing recently? All of this information is on Google. Who's the talent buyer? Who's the booking agent? And if anybody has some questions about what that kind of pitch should be to a booking agent, email us, because Anik, who is the newest member of our team, who maybe some of you guys haven't met yet, is also a booking agent. So no, a talent buyer, which is different. He's a talent buyer. Mm-hmm. Anyways, if anybody has questions, I'm sure he's got some great tidbits.
And you actually already answered a bit of that question, y'all. You have to think about your pitches as providing value for the person that you're pitching to. Yeah. You cannot just write in an email like, look at me. And actually, we need to even just change this, even how you're posting on your social media when it comes to your release. Oftentimes I see artists and they're just like, I've got a new release. Here's my new release. Check it out. No, you need to phrase it as a value proposition for the person you're marketing to. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm marketing to a media outlet. Hey, I see you wrote about this other artist who's makes similar music to me. I think my song would really fit your listeners' interests. Do you mind checking it out?
Yeah.
That's a very different proposition than, hey, I've got a new single. It's great. Listen to it.
Yes. Amen. Here's along those lines, guys, journalists, people who write articles. I mean, press as a whole, is it worth it? Is it not worth it anyways? But like, start following any music publication that is relevant to what kind of music that you make. Every one of those authors have a Twitter account. Go follow them on Twitter. And a lot of times you'll see art journalists will be like, hey, I'm looking to write something about, anybody know any rappers in Atlanta? I'm looking to write a piece about something. This happens all the time. So best thing you can do, look, journalists are always looking to they want to pitch something to their publication. So go do some research and say, okay, oh, hey, I see that you usually write about, underground rock rappers in the Atlanta scene. I've got an interesting story for you or something like. Mm-hmm. The goal is to help them. You want to help them by giving them content that they don't now need to search the internet for.
Exactly. Yes.
Right? And yeah, blogs, articles, we can have a whole conversation about whether that's where you should be spending your energy and time. I think it ultimately has to do with what's the bigger picture here. Sometimes it's relevant to get, I think, press, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it can build kind of like your street cred and your resume to be like, hey, look, I've been featured in these places.
Yeah.
And that might look good for you booking that show.
Oh, yes. If you can say I've been written up in, the Fader, in Pitchfork, in, OK Africa, etc. That is definitely, those press posts are going to follow you around in a good way,
Sure. So I want to get to some of these questions. Let's see.
Sorry. Good point, Kenny, about helping your searchability. Absolutely. That is a big thing about why blogs. Yep. Very, very, very true.
Yeah, love that. Okay, let's see. So JB says, time management is a huge struggle for me, as well as how to strategize for release. Okay, that's not exactly a question, but we feel you. I feel you, JB. I feel you. I know a lot of artists here feel you. That's why we wanted to have this conversation today. So
time management, use the calendar block. That really, really does help. You can set aside your day and say, okay, this is how I'm going to spend the next 5 hours. Try it.
And again, focus on making that time of checking the calendar first. At least start there. 20 minutes a day. I'm going to make my schedule. I'm going to check my schedule. I'm going to get into the habit of looking at my calendar.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so Eric asks, can I correspond with my collaborators through IndieFlow? You absolutely can. IndieFlow's project tool, you can share project files with your collaborators. So say, you're working on this, let's go back to this release plan that
Mm-hmm.
Mike is working on. He can share music with people, he can share artwork with people, or invite people maybe who are doing the artwork into the project so they can be also held accountable to deadlines. So our project planning tool here at IndieFlow is absolutely collaborative, and you can collaborate with people who are not IndieFlow members as well.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, we have Jules. What's up, Jules? Jules asks, what's the other goal when releasing a single?
Other goals be?
Yeah, I think maybe that's what you're asking, Jules. Like, what are some other goals that you could have when releasing a single?
If that is the question, goals could be, I think here, Sensei of Sauce, you said TikTok, right? One goal could be, okay, with this release, I really want to activate my TikTok. I want to get my TikTok account going. Okay. Maybe another goal, like we said, it could be to book another show. Another goal could be to get the attention of some music exec. Maybe you are dead set, like, I want to sign to, I don't know, Red Bull Records. And what I want to get with this release is I have done some real sneaky things on social media. Actually, let me back up a second. One of the releases I worked on with an artist I used to work with, he's a rapper, and his goal was like, there's a rapper called Residente. He was like, I have to get, like, he is my man. Like, I need to be in touch with him. Well, I went, here's a little tip. This is kind of unrelated, but great little tip. I went and I followed from the artist's account. I followed everybody that artist follows, all his friends. He's like a huge artist with like 3 million followers. So, and he follows like 1,000 people. So I went and followed all of them within a week. Within a week, the big artist followed my artist because he keeps, like, he saw on his social. Yeah, it totally worked.
Girl, good tip. Good tip.
That was my goal. I want to get the attention of this person. That person being a gatekeeper. What other goals?
Goals could be around, like we said, getting press,
Mm-hmm.
getting a sync placement, collaborating with another artist.
Yeah.
Maybe one of your goals is to, work with a certain producer, or get a rapper to feature on your track, and you want to get their attention with this release. Maybe it is building your following through social media. Other goals, performing shows, getting radio airplay, getting a manager.
Yeah, right.
Monetary goals, yes, absolutely. Maybe it's selling merch. You want to sell 100 t-shirts with this musical release.
Or I want to sell the, exclusive limited edition drop that isn't actually exclusive or limited, but I want to give the impression that I have sold out of the 50 t-shirts that I printed for this release or something.
Yeah.
But the goal can be, the goal is whatever is relevant in your career. And maybe if you need some help kind of figuring out what those goals are, I feel like that would be a great thing to chat about in Discord, maybe during an office hours.
Absolutely. Yeah. Daryl asks, can we use IndieFlow collaboration tools to find other artists? Like, say you need a bassist for a track. Well, so Daryl, you can use the community Discord group and connect with other artists on the platform. And if you're looking for a bass player, for example, you can put it in the collaborate. I think there's a chat called collaborations.
Mm-hmm.
And you can put it up there and say, hey, I'm looking for a bass player who can do that. Another resource I'll put out there for finding musicians to play on your track, because I know we have a lot of producers in here and artists. Artists I've worked with and talked to have used services like Fiverr and Upwork to find session players for their music at reasonable prices. So just want to throw that out there. Mike says Vamper is like Tinder for musicians. I haven't used this, but like, yeah, get on that. There's another resource for you.
Someone was just writing on Twitter the other day. Maybe it is Vamper, or maybe it's like another version, but like of doing it specifically for like producers and artists. So like the Tinder profile is like 30-second tidbit of the producer's beat, and the artist is either like, yeah, I want to work with you or not.
Okay. Dang, swipe left. Your beat is not so good, or yeah.
Okay. Also, definitely the channel in Discord is called sorry, I just got distracted. It's called Artistic Collaborations. But also, tell us, if you're looking for something specific, let one of us, let Edy know. And we have connected, we've done some hand connecting.
We have.
And that's really cool. Yeah. So to you, Sensei, is there anybody here in Atlanta? I don't know if in this chat right now there's somebody here in Atlanta, but we have a bunch of artists in Atlanta. So get into Discord. Let us know what you're looking for specifically.
And one more question. Actually, we have a few more questions. Jules asks, "Is DistroKid the way to go for distribution?" No, Jules, IndieFlow is the way to go for distribution. And because you are an IndieFlow member, you have unlimited distribution. So let's talk about that on office hours. DistroKid is an option, but you are an IndieFlow member. IndieFlow is the best distributor that I know of right now. And a big reason why is because of the support that you get from our team.
Yeah.
And let's see, does IndieFlow provide ways to pitch to venues and sync libraries? So we do have a venue database on the IndieFlow platform. So if you're someone who's wanting to book shows for yourself, wanting to go on tour, then I definitely recommend utilizing that venue database, because we've done the work of getting that contact information for you. We also have an easy EPK building tool that you can use to pitch yourself to venues. Mm-hmm. For pitching to sync libraries, you can use our playlisting tool. We have a tool where you can create a private playlist and submit that private playlist for sync libraries. The one caveat I will put in there about pitching for sync is that you need to make sure that you have all of your metadata before you pitch. And when I say metadata, I mean you need to know what your splits are. You should have signed agreements with your collaborators. And when you're pitching, you should articulate that in the pitch to sync libraries. Sync libraries love when you pitch them something called a one-stop or an easy, clear song, meaning I own this song with one other person and there are no samples, and we've got an agreement together that clearly articulates who owns what. That makes the sync agency's job a lot easier. So,
and maybe if you're interested in more, I feel like if you need more information about sync and how to pitch, I think that's something we could talk about in Discord, right?
Yeah, and we also if you want to know more about sync too, we also hosted an industry session at the beginning of the year in January with James Burnett of Burnett Publishing, and it is on our IndieFlow YouTube page.
Yep, I'm gonna send everybody the link, right?
Yeah, so he dropped a lot of gems about pitching for sync and how to get into the world of sync. Right. Also, tidbit about into the world of sync, make sure you have an instrumental master. Okay, yeah. All right, any other questions? Let me just double check that we've answered all the questions I think we have in here. Yes, we've got all the questions in here. Daryl says, yes, part of your daily organization should be to make sure your metadata is together for each song. I cannot stress that enough, y'all. Like, you have no idea. I learned about metadata and split sheets after, my first project. And for artists who are just starting out, just get in the habit of making an instrumental master of your track and getting a signed agreement. Just build that into your routine, because who knows, in 5 years, that song that you released, this year might have a placement, or somebody might want it for a placement, or you might get into sync licensing then. That's how it was for me. I didn't start in sync licensing, but a few years into recording music, I started getting into it. So just set yourself up for success now. All right. Any other questions? Chop them in. But actually, I think it's 2:02.
Yeah, time to go.
We got to go, y'all. Okay. Laura, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom about organization. It definitely inspired me to get more organized. Y'all drop an emoji in here if you had fun, if you learned something. If you want to say any last words, oh my gosh, love you guys so, so much. Lunchtime. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you guys. Always lovely. And if anybody has if you guys have any other questions, if I'll just put, I think you all have my email, but feel free to hit us up. And
absolutely. And anyone who's not an IndieFlow member, if you're out there, we have a really super, super discount for today. If you want to sign up, I think it's only $150 for a whole year with IndieFlow. So when you're talking about organization, like, they're your organization tools. And someone mentioned distribution, and there's your distribution. So it's well worth it. It's probably the lowest price I think we've ever offered it at. So if you are interested in that, send Laura an email, send me an email.
We'll send an email to everybody also after this with a link.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool.
Everybody go get your shit together.
Go get your shit together. All right, y'all. Amazing. Thanks for being here. Hope you all have a wonderful day. And signing off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Bye.
Bye.